out as gay or bi later in life. Shrewsbury's MP Daniel Kawczynski came out in his 40s. He says he was terrified of people's potential reactions and very relieved when they were mostly positive. So what's been your experience of this? How have people reacted to you coming out? And if it's been a source of concern for you, then how do we change society, if you like, to make sure that's not so much of an issue? This is something that Daniel Kawczynski MP is going to be talking about in London today. He's going to hold a debate in Westminster Hall on LGBT acceptance. Brexit, of course, is big news at the moment, which makes it rather hard sometimes for other political issues to break through. But there are loads of other things to talk about. Daniel Kawczynski joins us now. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You said you were scared, you were anxious about coming out. Tell me the story of you coming out to your local Conservative association.
Well, I come from a very strict Roman Catholic family, Polish family, and even to this day, I think there are very strong anti-homophobic sentiments in Poland, which I regret very much. That was the sort of conditioning that I was brought up in as a child, that homosexuality was wrong, it was a sin, and that any deviance from the norm was abhorrent and to be avoided at all costs. So when I came out to my association, I was on the train from London to Shrewsbury, and I was actually praying that the train would break down. I didn't want to face having to tell them. And I think the reaction that I got from them will stay with me for the rest of my life. There were the 50 of the most senior members of Shrewsbury Conservatives were in front of me. I remember it as if it was yesterday at the Welty Tennis Centre in the private room there. And after my normal quarterly report to them, I just said, well, I'm now in a new relationship and it's with a guy. And I looked at these 50 faces in front of me, waiting for the reaction. And one gentleman who I won't name on the radio stood up and said, I think that's marvellous, well done, and started to clap. And then the whole sea of them stood up and started to clap and cheer. And then afterwards, all of them were giving me hugs and wishing me best wishes in my new relationship, wanting to buy me a whiskey. I think I went away with a tumbler of whiskey that evening rather than just a double. And it's something that will always stay with you because it's at those moments that you see raw humanity in operation. When you throw yourself at your fellow colleagues with something which is new and uncertain, their reaction, particularly if it's so loving and tolerant and kind, is something that will stay with you and empowers you for the rest of your life, yes.
And, of course, had you known that was how you were going to be received, your announcement was going to be received, then you wouldn't have been praying for the train to break down. You'd have been fine about it. But you didn't know. That's the point.
But there was a wonderful incident afterwards. One gentleman came up to me afterwards, and he will stay with me forever. He has since passed away, wonderful gentleman from Little Ness. And he said, I'd like a word with you outside. And I thought, oh gosh, he's going to have a go. And he said, I hear that you've given one of the other wards, because the local Conservative Party is cut up into different wards, I hear you've given one of the other wards a bottle of House of Commons Scotch signed by the Prime Minister. Is that right? Can we have one? And he was completely disinterested. He couldn't give a monkey about that. He just wanted the bottle of Scotch.
Yes, can I have a word about this raffle prize, please?
Yes, I want to be treated in the same way as the other ward. I want you to get a bottle of House of Commons Scotch signed by the Prime Minister. Couldn't give a monkeys about your sexuality. I just want the Scotch.
How did you, as you mentioned, your background is a Polish Roman Catholic family, and it's a background, a culture in which homosexuality is seen as sinful and a deviation from the norm. How did you come to terms with your own sexuality and with those feelings from your heritage?
Well, it was very, very difficult because I think, and this is the most important thing I want to get across in the debate, it's all to do about conditioning. of young people. If young people are always very sensitive and vulnerable, and they will obviously listen very, very carefully to what's being said around, not just by their family, but also their friends, fellow pupils at schools, and wider society. I was brought up initially in a highly homophobic, anti-gay society of Poland, and even today, unfortunately, I do not speak to certain members of my family, wider family in Poland, because they continue to have very strong anti-homophobic views, which is something of great sadness to me. I want you to know that after 8 years now in a same-sex relationship, I'm very happy to announce that on November the 9th, I will be entering into a civil partnership with my long-term partner at the House of Commons in the civil ceremony. That's only if there isn't a general election in the way, which may throw that off course. But it's been hugely cathartic. And the reason I wanted to do this debate is because wherever you are, if you're gay, whether you are a politician, whether you are a footballer, whether you're playing rugby, whether you are a radio presenter, if you have come out as gay, you have a duty and a responsibility to publicly talk about that and to give comfort and support to young people who may be feeling vulnerable and sensitive. I will never forget going to a LGBT film premiere at number 10 Downing Street with men who were invited who had themselves faced prison sentences for being gay. These were senior citizens who, in their time, of course, as you know, in the United Kingdom in the 50s and 60s, homosexuality was illegal and punishable with a prison sentence. And, of course, talking to them and their experiences of what happened to them and how much more difficult it was for them makes my coming out very, very easy. But what I want to do is to demonstrate to young people today that they shouldn't be fearful. My experience is that the vast majority of people are loving and tolerant and kind and understand that there are different forms of love between human beings, not just heterosexual love.
Tell me about this, the Westminster Hall debate that you're holding today. It's clearly very important to you. Part of the message, as you mentioned, is to do with what we say in schools and what we teach young people about this. But tell me what's going to be happening today.
Well, of course, this is the reason I've gone for this debate is that one of my researchers, his friend, came out to him just a few weeks ago, obviously crying and very, very vulnerable. But then he inflicted some self-harm on himself because he couldn't face talking to other people and a wider family about it, and had to go to hospital. That had a profound impact on me, listening to what happened from my researcher about his friend. And the other thing, of course, is we have seen recently in Birmingham, as you know, on the media, large numbers of protesters are outside schools demonstrating against any form of LGBT education in schools. I understand and respect those citizens' reservations and concerns. Of course I do. And I think it's the role of the state to try to understand the sensitivities on both sides, that we are polarized on this issue, and to try to find a middle way whereby sensitivities of parents are taking into concern to ensure that there is not too much emphasis on this issue in schools, but then that pupils who are LGBT do feel comfortable in their school environment and feel that they are valued too and have the support that they need.
One of the initiatives that you told us about is Mary Webb School and Science College in Ponsbury, which has a page on its website about this. Which at the very top it says we are an LGBTQ plus friendly place, and continues from there.
Oh, absolutely. And this morning I intend to phone the head of that school, Jeff Hardy, and I'd like to pay tribute to Jeff Hardy, Mr. Jeff Hardy from Shrewsbury, who has campaigned on LGBT issues for decades in Shrewsbury and around the United Kingdom. He highlighted to me the very, very positive work that Mary Webb School is doing. And I've sent you this morning their website, which actually shows I would say Mary Webb School is a pioneering school in showing sensitivity, but also support for pupils at this very sensitive and vulnerable time.